I don't want to
say it.
No. Yeah. This is a cringe way of Westworld revealing Teddy is back.
Hi, folks. This is Louis Herfin, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big D.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld, the unofficial podcast companion piece to season 4 of the HBO series Westworld. As always, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And this is our preview episode where we dive deep into the cast, production, and background of Westworld to gear up for the long-awaited next chapter in the lives of our favorite hosts and humans. If you have not already, please subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss an episode. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting our new website, www.shatpod.com/subscribe. This season, we are bringing you our Shat on TV pledge, the 4 things we promise. And I'm going to ask for verbal confirmation from each of you. 1, we will keep it tight. We will not go over the show scene by scene. We're going to tie together the big ideas to bring you insights worth talking about and improve your viewing experience.
Yes, I concur. I am okay with point 1 on the Shat pledge.
Ash, how about you?
I will do my darndest unless there's a great Vonnegut reference.
On promise 2, we will hear you. So audience's participation is a huge part of Shat on TV, and the conversation is always humming on Twitter, YouTube, email, and Discord. Now, Westworld happens to be one of the shows that we do that gets the most feedback. So we do have a Telegraph episode that comes out every week, which will be strictly dealing with voicemail and email. 5,000 minds are smarter than one, and you, the listeners, make us better. Big D, do you pledge to listen to the listeners?
Oh, even more than pledge? I'm looking forward to it, yes. This is my favorite part of doing TV.
Ditto. It's my absolute favorite part is hearing from the audience, unless it's Lovecraft Country, but this is Westworld, so it should be really awesome.
Point 3, unlike Shat the Movies, we will not give you any spoilers. We will not spoil the show. Each podcast episode will only talk about what we have seen, not what we might know is coming. If we see something online, some speculation, or listeners tip us off to something, we're only going to use that to prepare to talk about what we've seen in the show, not to predict anything that's coming up.
Don't try to sneak one past us. Don't try to pretend like you've solved something, okay? Because if we sniff it out, we reserve the right to not put in what you've said, so you won't get any internet points. So please try to join us in this. Let's all try to stay virgin. Let's go into this and experience it together.
Yeah, I mean, I love the tinfoil hats, but I can agree that we won't spoil anything.
And finally, we will spend more time adding context to what you saw on screen. So how it relates to Westworld, TV in general, and the world around us, rather than passing judgment on the show itself. But if something is deliciously bad, we're still going to have some fun with it.
I will make a pledge to try to enjoy the show even if it's not good. Don't listen to us and expect us to only give you the rosy side of everything. Oh, the show is the greatest. It's the best. If there's a speed bump, we're going to say it. But don't turn on us and be like, if you guys don't like the show, don't cover it. Okay, we're supposed to love this and experience it together, the good and the bad.
Yeah, I mean, if the show sucks, that's not our fault. I feel like last season we got blamed for the season not being so awesome, when I think people were really just angry that the season wasn't as awesome as we all wanted it to be. But, you know, we're honest. But no matter what, Westworld, here's the deal. It's going to be the best of what's out there. And so we're just excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to that, let's talk about how Westworld will air on HBO. It will be on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, starting June 26th on HBO and HBO Max. And because it is Westworld, we are throwing the kitchen sink at it with 3 episodes a week. So you'll get our Instacast every Sunday night with our immediate reaction to the episode you just watched. You get the deep dive on Wednesday, so we have a little more time to rewatch, digest the episode. In Ash's case, sometimes watch 8 or 9 times, edit, and hear from the audience. And then on Fridays, you get the Telegraph to carry you into the weekend with the top email and voicemail from the week. And speaking of email and voicemail, you can still email us at host@shatontv.com and call us at 914-719-SHAT. But if you really want high quality and the ability to record from anywhere with whatever device you've got, use the SpeakPipe feature on shatpod.com/TV. It's Big D's favorite thing in the world.
Oh, it's the best. We want to hear your voice in all of its glory. It will be on the right-hand side of the screen. It is a red call out that floats there and says something like, call in, write in, share your voice. So use that, and it's a good way to get onto the show because it's more fun to hear you tell us your crazy thoughts as opposed to writing it down.
We'll do our best to respond to every email, but they might not all make the podcast. So it's also important to note that if you haven't checked out our email online already, if you go to shatpod.com/TV under the Westworld Telegraph, we'll still post all the letters there and respond to them the best we can. If you don't want your letter read on the podcast or you don't want your voicemail aired on the podcast, that's totally cool. Just note that in your voicemail or write that in your email. If you just want a personal response from us and don't want it to be aired, we will honor that.
And also, if I can give one change from last year's or last season's coverage, we also run Shat the Movies. Last season, we put that on hold. That is now scheduled a year out. So we've made a pledge to try to do both of these simultaneously. And keep in mind, folks, we do this. Yes, we've been going for 5 years, 5+ years, but we are amateurs. We all have full-time jobs. We have families. The dedication it takes for us to put this out there, we do it because we love you guys and the interaction is fun. But I know I'm dreading the next 8 weeks secretly and the amount of work that we'll put into it. But as soon as I hit play on my rewatch and I had the opening credits for episode 1, season 1, it all felt worth it, and I started to feel that excitement coming back.
But enough about us. Let's talk about the show. Westworld this season will be shorter as it was in season 3. We're getting 8 episodes this year, starting on June 26th. And that follows the existing cadence of a new season every 2 years or so, although this is the longest gap we've seen between seasons by a few months. HBO has been kind enough to provide an episode title rundown, except, of course, for the first episode. Typical Westworld, they're just calling episode 1 TBA. Before I get into any of the other episode titles, if you have not watched Westworld up to this point, we might be spoiling some things just by discussing these episode titles. So go back. You've got a couple days to watch seasons 1, 2, and 3, or at least a recap of what happened and catch our coverage on it. But episode 2 of season 4 is titled Well Enough Alone. And when season 3 ended, we were left in a world where the host man in black has killed William, and a version of Dolores in Charlotte's body is leading Dolores' abandoned mission of destroying the world. And then good guy Dolores, remember, she was all strapped up and her memory got defragged and wiped. So I wonder if this title suggests we'll be in a state of relative normalcy in the world. It won't be chaotic, well enough alone, like a calm before the storm.
Yeah, I mean, and apparently it's going to pick up 7 years later. So it's not just like a blip. It's not like it's going to be like 1 week after Dolores's memory is gone. I'm curious to see that because Westworld is such a tech-heavy show. And if you think about just the world that we live in, like the amount of technology that changes over that 7-year period, I can't imagine with like Rehoboam and things of that nature, what 7 years of tech is going to do. And that's why I like this title of like Well Enough Alone, because tech never leaves anything well enough alone.
Oh, I beg to differ. This is going to be a 7 years without Rehoboam, without the AI to help technology. I think after the revelation that free will did not exist and that your future was predetermined, people are going to be resistant to technology. I think it will be a period of revolt against technology, some destabilization of countries, of governments, of law enforcement. I think that sandstorm, or whatever the sand that we see covering William at the end of season 2, at the end of the credits, there's going to be some hell to pay. And I think we're going to come into a world that isn't exactly peaceful.
Here come the Luddites.
Well, episode 3, Ash, I might need some help on. I believe the pronunciation of the French is Annie Fall.
Anne, but yeah.
It's French for the crazy years. So if you think about in the US, where we had the roaring 20s, in France, they had the equivalent of that. It was a time of great artistic expression right after World War I. Probably the span of time that generated some of my favorite authors and some of my favorite art. You think about the age of modernity, it's right in there. I'm very curious to see how this relates to Westworld in season 4.
When and is it going to give us another park, right? Because that's always where my mind goes. Because if it means like the Roaring 20s, right? Like this time period in France, it was all about social, artistic, this cultural collaboration that was going on between these different groups of people and these different classes of people. And for me, we've gotten our samurai park, we've gotten our Indian park, we've gotten our Western park. Are we going to get a French 1920s park?
Yes,
that's
please.
the one I'm going to.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never been drawn to any of the other worlds in Westworld, but yeah, that I would be 100% about, which kind of gets to my obsession with Midnight in Paris, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Episode 4, Generation Lost. So keeping in the tradition of Westworld titles being double entendre, how do you like that for French?
Mm-hmm.
This could mean the conventional meaning of Generation Lost, which is the idea of the loss of quality between copies that compounds as you make subsequent copies of copies. So let's say, for instance, you are taking a JPEG, right? And every time you copy it, you lose 12% of the image quality. Pretty soon you're not going to be able to tell what that picture is. It could be, as we've seen in Westworld, a direct commentary on data, but it also could refer to losses of generations, like generations of Westworld hosts, or perhaps even a generation of humans.
But, you know, we've got all these copies of Dolores out there, and there's all of this rumbling about how there's going to be multiple characters upon multiple characters. I think that that's going to be really interesting, because what's at the crux of everything? What were these, you know, hosts based on? They were based on these ideas by their creators. And so they're, in a way, kind of like how parents, you know, have their children, and children are a reflection of their parents. But over and over and over again, we become the reflection of something that looks nothing like them, like way down the line. And I don't know. I'm pretty excited, because what does that mean when we get Dolores 9.2 trillion?
I'm going to shift back to my thought of doom and gloom. I'm thinking about the world. I'm thinking you now have a generation that's lost its drive. It's lost its purpose. I'm thinking not only of Westworld, I think Westworld has to expand beyond just the hosts to their impact in the world.
Well, Big D, I hate to bring sunshine to your rain parade, but the next episode is titled Zhuangzi.
Oh, yeah.
It references an ancient Chinese text from the Warring States period. What's interesting about this is this book, although it sounds kind of foreboding and intimidating, it's a collection of stories and sayings that are often humorous or irreverent. So the focus of this book is on spontaneous behavior, having fun, frivolity, freedom from the human world. And it dissects human distinctions between good and bad, life and death, human and nature, basically saying that these constructs, these contrasts are actually not real. It's something that humans just brought up themselves. It could be a comedy episode.
Oh, that's the one thing we're missing. Yeah, I think it's about time that the hosts get to relax. They've been so busy surviving. Let's watch them living. Let's watch them having a good laugh, a walk in the park, enjoying life. You know, maybe they like to ride a bicycle or ride a moped, something fun.
The least popular park at Westworld, this is Circus World. Episode 6, Fidelity. This is another double entendre because it could refer to both data fidelity, right? The ability to literally maintain integrity, but it could also refer to the fidelity between two people, right? Loyalty and in staying true.
Or fidelity to the original. We've seen William going through fidelity tests to see how close the host is to the original human. It could be that as well. But that's the great thing with these titles. Right now, we could go back and listen to like our past seasons coverage and what our ideas were and how far off we were. We'll know it's a good season if we are nowhere near correct on any of our guesses.
And what would a Westworld season be without a religious tale? Episode 7, Metanoia. So that is the reference to a change in a person's life resulting from penitence or a spiritual conversion. Now, if I had to peg a William-specific episode, this would probably be the one for me, but it could be a change in another character.
See, what's so interesting is when I saw your definition, I know this word to mean something else. It's a rhetorical device where you like retract a statement that you just made to either weaken or strengthen what came before it. And so you can totally like say something out loud like, I am a sinner, but I could almost say in some circles, I would be a saint because of the choices that I've made, right? So, like, you're qualifying that first statement. And so, what I think is interesting here is this. I mean, I hope it's spiritual too, but I also would love for them to play in the world of rhetoric, of like those word games that these hosts are trained to do, to basically go out and weaken or strengthen what came before them or what was said before them. I could see maybe a William if it's spiritual, or maybe like a Charlotte, aka like bad Dolores episode where she's coming in to take what Dolores did previously and completely change it.
And finally, we get to the finale, Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. Jonah Nolan actually wrote this one with Alison Shat Crew, who is a writer who worked on Alias and Fringe and The Flash and Almost Human. Notably, though, she also worked on Altered Carbon. Fun fact, Nolan has written every Westworld season finale. And I do wonder if this is going to be the one that wraps it all up for him. I've been a fan of everything that he's written so far for the show. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, me too. I just wish it weren't that title. I can't help but think of Heathers every time I hear that.
But also, because we had originally heard that in the beginning, they had planned out, Joy and Nolan had planned a 5-season arc. I think after last season, there was a question whether we would get season 4. Is there a chance this is a series finale?
I mean, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the viewership, which Big D, I know you always are looking at, right? It was 1.8 million in season 1. It dropped down by, I think, 1 million after that. And now it's like almost at 500,000, I think, for season 3. So it is in decline. I think a lot of people have abandoned this show. Ironically, I think that all the mind games and puzzles that they thought everyone was so rabid for actually kind of hurt the show. The more straightforward approach was doing better. I do hope for a season 5 after doing my rewatch. We're not just saying it. It is one of the best things on TV. I'd be down for another season, but I don't know if they've got the juice in the audience.
Let's go back. If I told you at the end of season 3, Netflix will be in decline. They will be losing hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Their binging like style is starting to fail. They're being challenged on all fronts. You'd be like, bullshit. Amazon can't be challenged. And look at what shows are doing now. Disney is releasing weekly episodes. You have The Boys coming out weekly. There's a shift away from binge back to premium television that's weekly. I think there's a chance we could get a resurgence.
Totally disagree. I think that the binge world is still very much the dominant world. There are shows I won't watch if I can't like get all the episodes at once. And I don't mean that like I sit and I watch them like back to back to back to back, but that I at least have access to them. Like it's driving me nuts watching the Obi-Wan show that they come out once a fucking week. Like it feels so anachronistic to not be able to access all of your TV all at once.
How are you watching that show?
It's amazing. I love it.
Leia is so precocious. Oh, she's climbing a tree and she's sassy.
I'm sorry you're so sexist that we're focusing on Leia and not Luke for the first time. But anyway, Westworld.
I think I want to also like clearly define what we say as a spoiler. Okay, because people have different definitions. Some people think the next episode's preview is a spoiler. My definition, and what I think we go off of, if I'm correct here, is that if it is something that is put out or shown by the producers, we do not consider it a spoiler. Do we agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Westworld and other HBO shows have displayed a desire to be consumed in multiple ways and on multiple channels. They are truly omni-channel productions. So just because you're not checking out a part of it does not mean that that's not part of the show. It absolutely is. It would be like going to a concert and closing your eyes the whole time, right? Because you only want to experience the music. It's okay if you do, but that's not what the concert's meant to be.
Okay, so with that said, I now want to shift to the major promotion that HBO has done for season 4. Recently, there was just the ATX TV Festival in Austin. This is the 11th year they've done it. It is a festival for TV where people get together, they watch, they discuss what's coming up, trends. And during ATX, Westworld got the closing night panel. And they spoiled something that I almost wish they didn't. James Marsden made a surprise appearance. He stood up in the theater and asked a direct question to the panelist, will Teddy be back for season 4? And Lisa Joy, who is on stage, confirmed Teddy is back.
This is a cringe way of Westworld revealing Teddy is back. It's so Austin 2022 of them to do this. But I'm here for Teddy being back. I like that part. It's been so long since we saw the guy that I'd forgotten how important he was to the story. I mean, he's basically been wiped out by season 3. I rewatched season 1 and I realized he's a character that got done dirty, and he is a critical part of the story. So I'm glad to see it back.
He's so boring. I'm sorry. I think that, yes, he was very important to the first season, and his death repeatedly, episode after episode, showed us the moral complexities of this park, and his job is done and his watch has ended. And I think he's back for fan service because they want more people to watch this season, and he's hot.
Gene had said, well, maybe he's going to come back just in flashbacks, or just going to be a piece of the show that's in the past and not going forward. I don't think you introduce him unless he's going to have a major role to play. So that worries me a little bit. But another piece of news that we got, Dolores, at the end of season 3, everyone wanted to know, did Dolores really die? And Lisa Joy confirmed, yes. And even though Evan Rachel Wood is going to come back, she will be a new character named Christina, who's living in what looks like New York City. She's supposedly a normal woman living in the big city. She's, out there. There's nothing much around her. So I don't know, and this concerns me a little bit, what they're going to do to reintroduce Dolores, but Dolores died, and not have it be in a forced, convoluted way, just to keep a main actress in the role.
I call bullshit on this. They're not just going to introduce a writer living in the city played by Evan Rachel Wood. There's nothing to do with the storyline, right? We are getting set up for some kind of Star Wars tale here. Like, Charloris is out there ready to destroy the world, and the only person who could stop her is a normal woman living in a big city, just trying to make it as a writer who discovers she has a powerful destiny. There might even be a lightsaber involved.
Or there could be like an army of Doloreses. And this just happens to be one of them.
I don't know. I didn't think Star Wars when I read this. I thought The Matrix, like the latest Matrix movie. Like, this is like completely that plot. Like, oh, there's a designer of a video game called The Matrix, and that designer's Neo. It feels like that's what we're being set up for here. That all of a sudden she's going to like touch something or like go get her eyeballs scanned like Minority Report style, and like everything gets downloaded back in from the great beyond.
You just made me realize I forgot to watch the new Matrix. I should probably do that.
That's 2 of us.
It's okay.
Well, now we know it's a video game fucking creator. Spoiler alert.
That's in the preview. So
Ashley, come on. This is one of our promises.
It's in the preview.
Okay. Well, one of the other things that we know is that season 4 was shot in New York, Cabo, Big Bear in California, and the Hoover Dam. I think that's an interesting location that will definitely be something to watch. But they also set up around Austin. What?
Why would the Hoover Dam be that interesting?
I think it'll be interesting because I'm picturing you're going to have some catastrophic attack. I'm going to picture you're going to try to blow the dam. If there was water there, we're going to flood downstream. We're going to kill a lot of people.
It's implied there's water there.
Well, California, they've got some drought conditions out west.
Oh my God.
I just love that. That's an interesting location.
Right?
Hey,
Cabo, New York City, Big Bear, and the Hoover Dam.
Yeah, we're warming up here, folks. You got to give us some time. Listen, when you winterize your lawnmower, you can't just go out there and just go cut grass. You got to warm it up. You got to ease into it. And that's what I'm doing right now mentally. One of the cool things they did also was they set up around Austin these Westworld themed coffee stands. They had either hosts or drones handing out cups of coffee with the tagline, "We are pleased you serve us." So this is interesting, whether it is the hosts or the drones being served by humans somehow. And they released also a promo video, which I found very interesting, tied to this festival. We'll create a link and we'll put it into the notes of this, but it is almost as if it is a promo video by Delos. It's voiced over by William, and he's announcing that Delos has expanded its footprint.
Now, in part of that video, we see a train, and I thought it was like, oh, is it the Polar Express? But now that we were talking about the Roaring 20s, this might make sense.
I'm telling you.
And we also get a voiceover that says the park is reopening and it's reimagined.
Yeah, one thing to recall in season 3, original William, remember they ran a bunch of fidelity tests on him. He dead. They killed him, right? And so the William that we're likely seeing, the Man in Black we're likely seeing in this promo is a host version thereof. which would make perfect sense, right? You got the guy who owns the place and he's reopening the park. If you're trying to build an army, do a world takeover, whatever you're trying to do, I mean, this is a great way to do it.
Because also, if you remember in the sequel to the 1970s film, it's Future World, where the plot was they were replacing world leaders with hosts. So this ties into that. If they're reintroducing a host version of William and he assumes his proper position out in the real world and the position of power, that could be something, a plot that they're going to do worldwide.
So one thing that's different about this season is that they're not being really cloak and dagger about who's going to be in it. We already got the big reveal of James Marsden coming back as Teddy. And then we already know that Evan Rachel Wood. We've talked about Tessa Thompson. You know, we're going to have Jeffrey Wright confirmed back, Ed Harris, Luke Hemsworth, Thandiwe Newton, Aaron Paul. So that's all really, really exciting. And Nolan, he talked about how in this season in particular that actors are going to be playing multiple characters. And I think that's pretty great. And there's a quote here from him that I think kind of sums up the part that I was most excited about with this, where he says, part of the fun of the show from the beginning is that one actor can play several different roles and the story shifts underneath them, shifts genres, shifts time. And I think that they've done that previously. I think that they have shown that these actors can handle it because, I mean, we have such a strong cast. I was going back and rewatching some episodes and I forgot how strong of actors a lot of these guys really are. Evan Rachel Wood being at the top of that list, Tessa Thompson as well. And so I'm excited to see them doing that, you know, where they're in these different circumstances, they're in different relationships, hopefully in different iterations of themselves throughout different parks. And I think that's going to be pretty exciting to watch this season.
You know, they're missing Mike Myers. He's really good at playing several different roles. Does anyone else feel like with all the like deaths, rebirths, reboots, recoding, glitches, etc., the unkillable characters like Dolores, like Bernard, like I don't want to see the story shift around them because I feel like they hurt my ability to get invested in the story at this point. They're like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones.
That is literally the example I was about to give, is once you make Jon Snow unkillable, thank you, you know, R'hllor, the night is dark and full of terrors, it became less interesting to watch him. His storylines got less interesting. Now, where I do think it works is where the character looks different. So like Tessa Thompson becoming Charloris, like I think that I'm still invested in because it isn't Evan Rachel Wood playing the same character, but I think that's why I kind of groan with Teddy coming back. You know, do we need James Marsden? I don't know.
You might have converted me on that one.
Well, and then we also, as we've kind of already mentioned, have some new cast members that are verified as coming into the Westworld world. One of them being Ariana DeBose. If you've not seen her, she was absolutely fantastic in the new West Side Story. Wasn't a big fan of the overall of that production, but she is just electric in it and she's absolutely beautiful and she's wonderful and charismatic, and I'm very excited to see what she does in this show. And then a lesser known show that I actually thought was a pretty great network television series, I watched it with my mom, it was called Prodigal Son. One of the actors from there, Aurora Perrineau, is going to be joining the cast for a few episodes. We know that she's in there for at least 4 to 5 and that they're going to be a key recurring character. That's the only thing they've released. So not any big Aaron Paul bombshell, because I remember all of us were like, oh, Jesse from Breaking Bad is coming into Westworld. You know, and it was a really big deal with the last season. So maybe not anything quite as bombshelly, but I don't know. I'm still holding out hope that Anthony Hopkins is coming back.
Well, he didn't stand up and ask any questions.
No, he wasn't at the panel.
Will Dr. Ford be returning?
Actually,
he's in his double-breasted tuxedo.
Yes, exactly. But as we shift here, I think to our wish list for the coming season, I want to go completely against what you just said, Ash. I am tired of spending time for hunting clues. I want a less convoluted storyline. I don't want us to be sitting around being like, oh, whose pearl is in whose body, and trying to unravel like a timeline about what are we watching. Give us a straightforward quality story with character development. That's what I want. I don't want to be wondering, is that Teddy? Oh, is that Charloris? Is that Bernard? Who is that? I don't think anybody wants that. Give us a good story. We've got the characters. Let's start closing this up.
This is a vexing topic for me, though, because on one hand, season 2, I felt was like a big circle jerk in this way, right? It was just mystery upon mystery upon mystery. But you think about season 1, that moment when Bernard said, "What door?" And your jaw just fucking dropped. I'll take more moments like that. I want more of that. And that was a mystery into itself.
I just want a smaller world. I think Westworld season 1 was at its best because it was so contained within the park. It was something that was epic without having the bloat of a truly epic show like a Game of Thrones, where you're, juggling Dorne and Westeros and North of the Wall all at the same time. It gets really difficult to do that. And that's what I want again. Now, I know we're never going to go back to the traditional park of Westworld, and that's okay, but I would love for this to be like 1 or 2 locations, and I would also like to go back to some semblance of a park. I think that's why I was so excited about this potential 1920s Parisian kind of interlude here, because I would like to see that. And for me, last season just got way too spread out.
God, we could have spent 2-3 seasons just in the park because we knew it was expansive and we knew that there were these day-to-day stories. We could have spent a day or an episode with each character really diving deep into who they were. The cat is out of the bag. There's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Maybe at least restricting the settings that we see could help us focus more on the characters and the intricacies of the show.
Yeah, and then the second and final thing on my wish list is kind of the opposite of what you just said, Big D. I loved Westworld seasons 1 and 2. I tolerated season 3. And this season, I want to go back to what people like me thought made it good. I want the plot to make sense, but I love the complex timelines. I like the mystery. I want it to pay off in a way, though. I want a puzzle like season 1 that has a satisfying ending. I don't want a question with no answer that looks cool because we've got a new character, Aaron Paul. I just want it to go back to that really smart, complex show. I loved the moments where we got to dig into the literary clues. When I was just a fan then, but when I used to write you guys all of the letters for the Telegraph, analyzing Slaughterhouse 5 and William having that on his bookshelf, and that's what his little card key was in. I want the literary clues. I want to dig through it. I just don't want you to make me do it for nothing.
No, I totally agree. I want it to make sense. I felt in season 2, they started with the premise of, okay, we're going to give a corrupt Bernard. We're going to try to make the mystery of which one are we seeing. The what door? That's worth it. It paid off. I don't want at the end. Again, Dolores, come on. It doesn't pay off. And I'm hoping they go back to that first season where it did.
Westworld on its face is not an inherently interesting show for me. There's a lot of tech shows out there. There's a lot of shows about the dangers of technology. One of the best being Mr. Robot. I think there's a lot of smart TV that's trying to make the point that big tech is bad and that AI is a really complex thing when it comes to the morality of it. What I think made Westworld so different is it wasn't just about that. It was a really high level, super cerebral show that reminded me, and God, we're going to get mail for this, of the first couple of seasons of Lost, where they had taken the time to connect all these things and to have this really deep-seated mystery. Because mystery like that, really well-crafted mystery, is few and far between. It's very difficult to do well, and it's very difficult to sustain. But Westworld did it for a while, and that's why I have so much hope in these people coming back and doing it again.
Ash, I'll defend you on the parallels between Westworld and Lost. They are many and they are strong. You mentioned going beyond just the technology in a show. I think for a while in 2020 and 2021, I thought escapism in our television might be nice. When they did shows about pandemics, I thought now might not be the best time for that. And people say it all the time. I don't want politics on my show. I don't want to be reminded of the harsh reality that we live in. I think at this point, we're getting used to understanding how bad shit is getting. And now that we're more acclimated to it, I kind of want TV to be a thought-provoking statement on what's going on around us and say something about the unprecedented times that we're in. I wouldn't mind Westworld taking a look back at 2022, 2021, and really making some statements on that, how we've changed as a people and how that alters their view of this dystopia. And finally, my one big ask of the Westworld showrunners, even though you've already filmed it and produced it, please, please, no metaverse. Can we just let this trend die? I think I heard that even the new Jurassic World is, in a sense, a metaverse movie. I'm so tired of this shit.
No, I guess I can't see that movie now either. Thanks, Shane.
Spoiler alert, there's going to be dinosaurs in it and characters.
Life finds a way.
It's not like there's a portal between Jurassic Worlds or something. Doctor Strange is flying around. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the concept of a metaverse. Is like, what if? That should be a what if movies. Let's not have any of that.
Yeah, okay.
But there's probably going to be a portal in this season.
Probably.
Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Shat on TV Westworld. Now we begin the countdown to the June 26th launch of season 4. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at our long dormant Shat on TV account at Shat on TV. Facebook, just search for Shat on TV podcast. The website is shatpod.com/TV. You can email us, host at shatontv.com. Call us at 914-719-SHAT or use the speak pipe feature on shatpod.com/TV. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat the Movies, where we cover 80s and 90s movies commissioned by you, the listeners. You can find past and future episodes at shatpod.com, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us June 26th for the first Westworld Season 4 Instacast.
We are looking at how to pronounce this name, as well as how to say more interesting and related names as well. So make sure to stay tuned and consider subscribing for more learning.
Okay, come on.
How do you say it? Thandiwe. Thandiwe.
Thandiwe.
Thandiwe.
Thandiwe.